the formula for all.
Next, our All-Star Roundtable takes a closer look at the race for U.S. Senate in Ohio and are social issues eclipsing the economy in the minds of voters. In our All-Star Roundtable this week, two new guests join us. Janetta King is the president of Innovation Ohio, a progressive policy center, and Kevin Holtzberry is the president of the Buckeye Institute. That's a conservative think tank. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for being with us. We've been talking this week about the U.S. Senate race. Sherrod Brown trying to defend himself. Josh Mandel, the likely Republican challenger for him heading into the fall election. We're already seeing so many ads against Sherrod Brown, and we can expect to see them coming against Josh Mandel once he's selected. You know, what do you think we can expect coming out of the tone of this race as we head toward November?
Well, it's certainly going to be a very hotly contested race. This is a race that the nation is watching. And you're right, Sherrod has had millions already spent against him by the Chamber of Commerce. For months, they have been up on TV. And I think the surprising thing, and the thing that certainly Senator Brown should feel good about, is that despite that, his numbers are staying up. His numbers haven't moved dramatically. And I think that's really telling to how people feel about Sherrod Brown, and that they have confidence in him and they approve of the job that he is doing.
These messages, though, don't you think can be pretty effective?
I think that's going to be a big issue to see how the economy plays out on a Senate race, because I think Josh, who's a hardworking candidate and is experienced in running good campaigns, he'll keep that part taken care of. So I think the messaging is going to be critical as the economy, is it growing, is it shrinking? I think Josh is going to try to set Sherrod Brown and connect him to Obama and the economy and the problems of the economy, and sort of portray him as an old-fashioned tax and spend liberal who's just throwing more monies at problems like the stimulus and like other issues, and that's not working, that Ohio is not gaining the jobs, and so we need a fresh face and a fresh set of ideas to change the tone in Washington.
You know, one thing about Josh Mandel, where he will be vulnerable, I tried to talk to him about that earlier, is that he's being viewed as someone who was fickle as far as he ran for the state treasurer's office, he got into office, and just 2 months later started working on a U.S. Senate campaign. Do you think that's going to make him vulnerable?
I think it is an issue he'll have to deal with, but I think voters usually, there's a threshold. If a candidate is seen as serious and is seen as addressing the concerns that voters have, a lot of time all those issues sort of fade away a little bit. If he doesn't have a consistent message, he doesn't seem to be communicating, I'm a serious candidate and I have very important reasons for running, little side issues become distracting. So I think it's really important that his message starts resonating and he portrays himself pretty quickly as a serious candidate who has very valid reasons for running.
And today, he's certainly not taken as a serious candidate. I think there is an issue that he's not even showing up for the job that he has. As treasurer, he's been very absent and instead has been primarily fundraising. So to the extent that this race will be about Ohioans feeling like a candidate is going to be working for them, I think Josh Mandel has a long way to go to convince people that he's going to go and work for them, where Sherrod Brown has a record of doing that. And if you want to talk about the economy and Sherrod Brown's accomplishments, I think the first thing you have to look at is his support for the auto loan. And that has a big impact on Ohio, not only northern Ohio, but throughout the state, as suppliers and others were able to stay in business. And it saved people's jobs and is even creating jobs. So when the debate does become to the economy, I think that Senator Brown will have a lot to say about that. And so far, we don't know where Josh Mandel stands on a lot of issues.
Well, Kevin mentioned the economy will probably very much be at the forefront for voters this fall. We've also seen, though, recently some social issues percolating to the top. The funding for the contraceptions by churches, whether or not they have to do that, as well as abortion issues for Santorum. That's been dogging Santorum on the trail. Do you think those social issues can maybe, in an election that's close, be the difference? People coming out to vote on social issues, or are they as unimportant as some people try to portray them?
I think they're important for the base, and they're important for some of the activists. And so during a primary season and during this season, where not all of Americans are as plugged in as some of the political types are, a lot of this shifting back and forth is sort of settling that comfort level. And a lot of conservatives want to see who's going to fight on those issues that are important to the base and important to the activists. So I think you can send the signals and you can prove your support and prove that you're aggressive and you're going to fight in some of these cultural war social issues. And then I do think it's capable of pivoting back to the economic issues and the more moderate and independent voters in the general election, because then a whole host of voters come on and pay attention in a different way. So I think you can have both a social base battle and an independent moderate economic battle later on.
But isn't it also possible that those social issues will motivate some people who may not have been planning to pay attention to the election? All of a sudden, you know, they're motivated. Let's say women's issues or people who have strong feelings about abortion. Do you think?
I think that the conservatives are going to have a problem on their hands if they continue attacking, for example, access to contraception. That is something that across political lines women believe in. And in this primary that the Republicans are having at the national level, and quite frankly, even some state policies that are playing out here in Ohio, the Republicans are going very, very and dangerously so far to the right. And I think there is an awakening among women who will come out and will not stand for basically access to contraception being taken away from them. So I think that's very dangerous for conservatives. They're going to have a problem on their hands. Even if they try to rehabilitate themselves after the primary, women are going to remember that this is where they are on contraception, and I think that that's going to mean maybe a better turnout for progressives.
Do you think, Kevin, that during the primary season, the party often kind of, the candidates find themselves trying to appeal to the extremists in their own party, and then when they get to the general election, where they kind of are forced to go more toward the middle, they set themselves up as being contradictory to their own policies from just a month or two ago?
I think that's a problem for candidates who aren't as smooth on the communications and messaging front. Some candidates have a hard time getting caught up in the red meat and sort of going too far and triggering controversies when they don't need to. And then they do have trouble pivoting because the media will want to keep bringing up the controversies. I think successful candidates can be very conservative and can reassure the base on abortion, which is something that brings a lot of conservatives to the polls, and send those signifiers that, yes, I'm going to fight for you in the cultural battles, but that they're good at making their message layered on top of that about economics, about jobs, about what the economy is really about. So I think it's a indicator of the skill of the communications plan if you're able to touch on those issues but not let them overwhelm your campaign and trip you up with a lot of controversy.
Well, we should then talk about on the national level what the four remaining Republican candidates are doing. It seems as if the Republicans can't find one candidate that everybody can get behind, and it depends on where you are, which state you're at, and any given day the leadership goes back and forth. Romney was up in Michigan, and then Santorum was up, and Gingrich was ahead of Paul, and then he was behind Paul. Are you surprised that at this point, this close to Super Tuesday, that no one has really emerged as the candidate for the Republicans?
I think it's a part of the sort of reshuffling of the coalition of the Republican Party in the aftermath of the Bush presidency. We didn't have a strong candidate who could replace, either we could vote up or down on the Bush legacy and then start new, or continue with somebody who was carrying that legacy on. And so the coalition is sort of jockeying for position. You know, you have conservative, social conservative Santorum, you have the sort of true libertarian Ron Paul, you have Newt Gingrich, who is conservative but establishment, and Romney trying to be the business side. All of this jockeying, and I think the coalition hasn't been able to come together and pick one that fits closely with all those coalitions together. So I think it's a natural part of politics playing out when you don't have a clear party leader.
And Janetta, what do you think when you look at what's going on the Republican side?
I think the real story here is that Mitt Romney can't seal the deal. He has been ahead a lot. Now he's falling behind. He's had a lot of time to convince voters that he should be the candidate, and he hasn't yet. And so to the extent that he becomes the nominee, which, you know, it looks like he likely will, I think that's going to be a problem for him in the general in getting those other factions of the base to rally behind him.
We are almost out of time, but I'm going to very quickly put you both on the spot and tell me who you think will come out on top in Ohio on Super Tuesday on the Republican ticket. Were you willing to make any predictions?
I guess I don't have anything to lose. I think that Mitt Romney will come out on top.
And Kevin?
I think in the end, yes, he has the boots on the ground and the campaign sort of mechanics to make it happen. That would be my guess too. But I guess it could be a surprise in store. Who knows? Okay, we thank you both for being with us, and we'll be right back.
Next week on The Spectrum, Rick Santorum will be back in Central Ohio for a final push in the days leading up to Super Tuesday. We will update that last-minute push for all the GOP contenders and, of course, our All-Star Roundtable on NBC 4's The Spectrum.